My next project is going to be turning a large crotch piece. This particular piece is a piece of ash, and back here there's one in walnut. You'll see the walnut one had some cracks in it, so I filled it with epoxy. And the figure in a crotch is always in through the center. You can kind of see there's a figured area here in the center. And this is going to be the top of the piece. It's going to serve as more like almost like a cheese tray type of thing, with a small opening in the center and a big flat area at the front. And the best way to find the center in one of these type of things is basically just to take your major dimensions, find roughly the halfway point, and take your major dimensions this way. And again, find the halfway point. And I'm going to use just a very small faceplate in this one because I don't want the drill holes interfering with the bowl. So I just mark the areas, and I'm going to pre-drill. And that should be fine, even though there's a gap here. The majority of it is on a flat surface, and I'm going to use the tailstock for support anyway, so that should be fine. I've mounted the piece on the outboard end of the lathe, and you can see I've used tailstock support to make sure it's even safer. And it's on the outboard because of the large diameter of the piece. It's greater than 24 inch. Here I'm using some pull cuts to just flatten what will be the top surface of this tray. And that's just so that I have a rough idea of how thick to make it when I'm cutting the back. You don't have to do this step, and of course if you don't have a big enough lathe you won't be able to do this step. But I like to do that so that I have a flat surface and I know where the thickness will end up. I'm going to work on the bottom of the piece. The video clip is actually sped up quite a bit. The speed that I'm turning is actually very slow. I'm just using push cuts with a bowl gouge, and as you can see, the cuts are from inside to outside to follow the grain. Now I'm starting to define the base, and I will also mark the tenon and create the tenon for the chuck. Here I'm just marking the tenon with a little gauge that I use. I'm now finishing off the bottom of my piece, just using push cuts with the bowl gouge. I'm getting my desired shape. And then when I have the desired shape, I will use a shear scraper to get rid of all the little ridges. It just makes sanding a little easier. I use the shear scraper on 45-degree angle if the cut is continuous, as it is right here. But then when the cut is not continuous, you'll see I will flatten the shear scraper, the negative rake scraper, and just use it on its edge. To do the edge of the piece, I will often just use a belt sander, as I show here. And then I also use a 2 or 3 inch disc sander and go through the grits with power sanding while the piece is stationary, just to get rid of all the grooves. I have turned the piece around and mounted it on a 4-jaw chuck, and I'm just using a bowl gouge now to face off the front of the piece and get it as flat as possible. With the front face now totally flattened, I'm going to create the center bowl area. And initially I roughed it out with my roughing gouge. Now I will go to a little bit smaller gouge that's just been sharpened. You can see what the profile looks like here. And I will finish off the bowl shape with a little bit slower cuts and try to keep all the little ridges out of it. After finishing and sanding the front, I'm going to use this jam chuck mounted to my 4-jaw chuck, and I will use that to use the tailstock, remove the tenon, and then finish the sanding on the very bottom of the piece. Now that the piece is essentially finished, I just have to grind off the bottom nub. I'm going to do that with a rotary carver and a saber-tooth bit. And then I'll apply my finish of choice, which is general salad bowl finish for this type of thing. And then you'll see my finished piece as well as a couple other finished pieces of the same crotch piece type design.